I need to come up here. Oh. I'm trying to get to my.
Hello?
Hey, can you hear
There's
me?
one. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm kind of a little away from the mic at the moment.
You're alright. I'm just trying to set shit up real fast.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get part of being live up and. Oh, damn it. There. Oh, I got a freaking band aid on my finger. I can't do jack crap with that on. Dang it, I can't talk. Oh, there. Oh, I'm getting there. It's coming along. Thanks, a piece of crap. See the side of your head.
Yeah, that's the only place I can set up the damn camera worth of shit.
Yeah. Feels like it's been forever since I've done this crap.
Hey, it's been a bit.
Yeah, it just took me a while to get everything around today. My Podlet being live is going slow.
Yeah. Check something.
I don't know what happened to Craig's little box.
He ain't in here yet.
Hope this thing gets to working because it's just sitting here spinning at the moment.
Why ain't this thing fucking recording?
It don't want to.
Yeah, something like that.
There. And I can bring the mic over here. Be all, hey, what's up? Now I'm happier with the way this thing is set up. So can other people join this too?
I'm not unless we invite him.
Oh, I didn't know how that worked.
Why is this not captioned? I want to test it.
You don't want to. There, I got a big screen. Ooh.
Hello.
Well, there you are.
The caveman showed up.
I guess I need to hook back up here.
I'm having issues.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Richard, why do we got a side view of you?
It's the only place I can get to work.
That's his better side.
Hey, there's that.
I'm still fighting with Podbean. He is not wanting to play with me today. Yeah, that's what I want to be. Dang, everything's all complicated.
Oh, my name's good.
All right, now y'all gonna have to get in the pictures here.
Yeah, film company, thanks, dude.
Sean is trying to hide too.
I'm sitting a little lower than what I used to sit. So I don't know.
If I touch this just right, it's going to fall off. Well, this is a half-ass way to do it.
It's just not a whole ass. We'll see if that starts working here in a little bit. I don't know. I'm not that worried about it tonight.
I'm going to double check and make sure the recordings is working. Craig, you say something?
Hello.
Sean?
Yeah. We're all excited in this place. Since we're on Discord, let me try something just real quick. If it doesn't work, I can switch back really quick.
Okay, cool.
Whoa. Whoa. You don't like me today. Oh, I need light. I can't see. I'm blind. Got 2 lamps on and I'm still blind. Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can hear you.
Okay, maybe that will work. I like this mic better. I don't like this other one.
Hold on. Are we bleeding through?
Hello. Yeah, I think so. There's a little echo.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, damn it. Damn it to hell.
What do we need to do to get rid of the echo?
There, maybe that'll get rid of it. Is that better?
Hello.
Talk in, Craig.
Hello.
I didn't hear you on the feedback.
Is that better?
I think we're good now.
Oh, yeah. I think it's this mic. It was causing the feedback. I tried it instead
My
of the
bad.
other one. Anyway.
Are we about ready to rock and roll?
Oh,
I don't think so.
Hey, does my picture and stuff, does it look a little slow, like the voice ain't matching the lips moving?
No, it's fine, man.
on my end, I get a little.
Okay.
I get a little bit of a delay on my end, but
Yeah, I'm getting the delay bad.
it's
But I
like
think that
it's like a half a second. I don't know.
It might be because it's trying to storm outside here.
It was kind of doing that to me the other day, but I thought it might have been what we were using.
We lost you, Sean.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
There you go. He came back.
I'm here.
It's just on your end. I think you're the one having problems.
He's always.
Well, I think it's the storms outside.
Blame it on Mother Nature.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we're ready to start if you're ready, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, let's rock and roll, guys.
Alright, here we go then. Officially titled Operation Overcast, the United States government brought over 1,600 scientists, engineers, and technicians in a 14-year span of time. With this operation, there are a lot of controversies, the major one being that some individuals had direct ties to atrocities. These German specialists with ties to the Nazi Party were brought over to help create a technology tech, to help create technical advantage over the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The operation contributed to advancements in rocketry, space exploration, and military technology. Now join Sean, Craig, and Richard as we dive deeper into the exciting time of advancement and in the project better known as Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, it was a pretty significant operation. See, President Harry S. Truman officially approved the project in 1946, but ordered that no active Nazis to be recruited, a directive that officials circumvented by sanitizing records of target scientists In practice, many of the recruits had been Nazi Party members or even SS officers, but their dossiers were whitewashed to downplay their involvement in war crimes.
I'm going to shoot an apology that I stumbled over that one word a while ago.
You're good.
But
You're good.
thank you for not
It's okay.
So pretty much.
But yeah,
Go ahead. You got a little bit of delay.
I'm losing y'all. I'm losing y'all.
Just keep talking.
I think where I'm having issues. Okay, you know, the operation, you know, a lot of people felt, you know, is a moral outrage, you know. Did it help us win the Cold War? Yeah, it probably did. You know, they come up with some interesting inventions and all kinds of different rocketry and everything else.
You know, look at the, you know, the advancements like the Titan missiles. I was just watching a show the other day that they were talking about the Titan missiles and the Cold War and how those rockets could travel up to 6,000 miles, and that's thanks to, you know, this technology that that was advanced by basically the Germans, because Germany was really into, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because one of the Go ahead.
We would have been in trouble if they would have developed a lot of this stuff for Germany instead of us.
Germany's downfall, a lot of it was the fact they didn't have the resources that we did. Like a lot of the German military at the time when we arrived were still operating on horseback, and then they were shocked when we showed up and everything we had, there were no horses on our end. It was all mechanized and motorized. So we had the technical capabilities to do a lot of this stuff. I'm just gonna read this.
Yeah, you know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the more famous ones, Werner von Braun, he was a German rocket engineer who helped develop the V-2 ballistic missiles they used to shoot at England during the Blitz. Be the first ballistic missile of its type.
And he also was involved in making the Saturn rocket that put America on the moon, right?
Yeah, let's see here. 1960s, he became the first director of the NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center and chief architect of the Saturn V moon rocket.
Well, they claimed that we went to the moon anyway.
Yeah. But he was instrumental.
Another conspiracy theory.
Yeah. But he was instrumental in the Apollo program in 1969, but he was also technically considered a U.S. citizen at this point and a national celebrity, and was claimed to be the founding father of American space exploration. But here's where his legacy is a little bit more tarnished, not just a little bit. The band, he built his V-2 rockets on the back of war prisoners and slave labor during the war.
Well, you know, I know Germany is really criticized about having the concentration camps and stuff like that, but here in the United States, we basically almost did the same thing with the Japanese. And, you know, talking about free labor and stuff, we had them encampments, and actually one of them was over around Fort Smith, if I remember right, where they had pretty much anybody that was Japanese or Japanese descent was kept there. So they had plenty of people that they could use to help build stuff, and they're pretty smart as well.
Yeah, but whereas the German prisoners of war and all that didn't. Yeah, I mean, the Japanese citizens here did not have a choice, and it's definitely a dark stain on American history.
Yeah.
But the Japanese Americans also joined willingly in the army, and one of them is called the Purple Heart Division, which has more medals than any other army unit of that type at that time. They were over in the European theater. But anyway, like the whole Operation Paperclip and all this, yeah, it propelled us through the Cold War, but it was also built on the back of a lot of Nazi members and a lot of knowledge that we got from World War II that was not very clean. Let's say that.
Well, to top it all off, a lot of these Nazis were very bad people. I mean, there was one that was convicted of mass murder and slavery. So, I mean, these were some bad men that actually, they got off of everything, covered up by the government.
One, I think this might be the one you're thinking of, Arthur Rudolph. He was another V-2 rocket engineer that helped develop the Saturn V rocket. In Nazi Germany, Rudolph served as the operations director of the Mittelwerk factory. The underground plant mass-produced V-2 rockets using enslaved concentration camp labor. It's estimated that over 20,000 died from exhaustion, disease, beatings, and hangings by the SS during this time.
Yeah, it was definitely controversial on a lot of issues.
And it really ties into our last episode we did about the Nazis and Hitler escaping to Argentina, because most of these men never faced any judgment for their crime, and the Operation Paperclip was actually highly classified. But it would leak, like in 1980, his wartime actions drew scrutiny because the public found out about it. And in 1984, he actually renounced U.S. citizenship and moved back to Germany, and he never faced any punishment for his crimes. He fled rather than stand trial.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot to it, a lot of people, they even said it broke the moral standard of the United States.
We're going to get into that too.
Was it right? Was it worth it? I mean, in a sense it was. I mean, we developed some good technology.
But
a lot of people got away with bad crime.
Yeah, I would just say that the practical person would look at the knowledge and just accept it, but the moral person would have a hard time with it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Another one, Kurt Heinrich Diebus was a German electrical engineer who was also part of the V2 program, and he helped organize and assemble concentration camp labor. Approximately 10,000 people died through his slave labor production. Under Operation Paperclip, Diebus was brought back to the United States along with the rest of Braun's team in 1945. For several years, he worked at the Army Missiles Project, and when NASA was formed, he was tapped to direct launch operations for the Apollo program. So that's 10,000 people that died under his watch, roughly. He also guided the Kennedy Space Center through the moon landing missions, and he helped start the Space Shuttle program. He was a naturalized U.S. citizen. Only many years later did NASA quietly confront Davis's history. In 2023, amid public pressure, the agency removed Davis's name from the KSC conference facility and officially acknowledged that its celebrated launch chief had been a Nazi SS officer involved in wartime atrocities. But he also escaped any kind of punishment.
Right.
It's just a major.
Well, I mean, you know, you even go on, and I guess you could dive into this about this Unit 731.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that here a little bit later after we get through all this.
You know, I know there's a lot of controversy dealing with, you know, them bringing these Germans over here and what they did, but I guess my way of thinking is, would you rather risk maybe or maybe not winning the war? You know, your chances of winning the war is way less with them still over in Germany. Or do you want to say, hey, we're going to bring y'all over and use y'all, get y'all away from all that craziness over there, give y'all some kind of peace of mind where, you know, y'all are bad guys, but we're going to use your bad guys to guarantee we're going to win. Would you rather a guaranteed win or and we might not win this, you know?
Yeah, that was the whole thing with Operation Paperclip, and the later stuff in Unit 731 is like, do we retain the knowledge or do we let the Russians get this knowledge?
I mean,
Right.
With that said, who's to say the Russians weren't trying to do the same thing, going, hey, we're bringing y'all over here? So we could have very well been a Russian country by now, or even a German country.
I think they were actually. The Russians and Soviet Union was actually trying to grab these guys too.
Yeah.
So we just grabbed them first.
But
It didn't. Well, it didn't help in the ending days of World War II. The German armies advanced towards our front to surrender instead of surrendering to the Russian army because we treated our prisoners better than they did.
Then, you know, with that said, you know, yeah, Russia is pretty freaking close to the United States anyway, where Alaska and Russia we're pretty close. But if you think about it, Alaska used to be Russian. The Russians owned Alaska before we did. So that was even closer. So, you know,
You still see some Russian architecture there.
I'm not going to say that they wouldn't have tried to take over, you know, more than what they've got.
I'm going to go ahead and go into another Nazi scientist, Dr. Kurt Blom. I think I'm saying his last name right. He was a Nazi biomedical scientist who played a leading role in Hitler's biological warfare and medical experimentation program. He was in charge of researching biological weapons. He even admitted to horrific human experimentation. Blom's staff conducted deadly trials on concentration camp prisoners, including inducing plague, typhus, and even cancer by deliberately infecting inmates. In 1947, he was actually prosecuted in Nuremberg doctor's trial for war crimes, but he was in a very controversial outcome, acquitted and came to work for us. So it sounds to me like special operations rigged that trial to get him out.
More than likely, I mean, you know, the U.S. government, you know, they definitely wanted them on our side.
Yeah, he was never charged with anything, but he actually did. He didn't live in America long. He resettled back in Germany and died in Germany in 1969.
Right.
Let's see, there's also Hubert Strughold. He was an aviation medicine researcher, which I didn't know was even a thing. He would study pilot survival in low pressure, low oxygen environments. So, in other words, using prisoners. His institute was linked to the infamous Dachau concentration camp experiments. They would make prisoners subject to deadly high altitude simulations, frozen ice water, and glean data from pilot rescue and oxygen systems. In 1947, under Paperclip, he was installed as chief scientist at the U.S. Air Force School of Aviation Medicine in Texas. So you're talking about another one that is never really got anything for his crimes, but investigations in 1980 and 1990 unearthed his connections to wartime atrocities. By 2013, Space Medicine Association, facing pressure, removed Strughold's name from its awards. But he also never faced consequences for his actions.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely
Dark.
yeah, bad stuff going on all around.
Yeah, the whole thing is just kind of like, just terrible. Like, I don't, I understand the point of it, but like another one, Walter Schreiber, who was a German military physician. He was actually picked up by the Russians, believe it or not. But for an example of his stuff, a Polish woman was injured at Ravensbrück, and Schreiber examined her and then deliberately infected her wounds with gangrene to see the effects.
Lovely.
Boy.
Yeah.
That sounds like about some of the experiments that was going on in that Unit 731.
Oh, those are dark.
Yeah, it gets really dark. I actually got more info on it than I did the Operation Paperclip.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff on Operation Paperclip was pretty well hidden. I mean, I don't know when most of this was declassified, but like I know with Schreiber, his information was actually leaked to the Boston Globe. They ran a story on it, and the resulting public outcry was severe. Within weeks, U.S. authorities had removed Schreiber from his Texas post. In 1952, with quiet assistance from the U.S. military, Schreiber and his family were put on a plane out of the country. He resettled in Argentina. There you go, Sean. He moved to the Nazi strongholds in Argentina. He escaped further prosecution for his crimes, and this is one of the first public scandals of Operation Paperclip, and it underscored the ethical peril of harboring a Nazi war criminal in the U.S. program. The Pentagon was actually very embarrassed by it, promised to tighten its vetting, and yet secret Nazi scientists largely continued, albeit more discreetly. Those are some of the more famous ones. You have a whole bunch. Other scientists contributed to jet aircraft, missiles, medicine, intelligence in the early Cold War. But most were complicit in varying degrees of heinous crimes under the Nazi regime, whether through active participation or willful cooperation. I can't speak now. Many have been devoted Nazis, some even in Hitler's inner circle, and had used slave labor and human guinea pigs to achieve technical feats. The U.S. government, driven by Cold War real politics, chose to overlook the past crimes, granting many of the scientists security clearance, influential jobs, and even praise while their victims received no justice. Congressional investigations in 1970 would later condemn Operation Paperclip as morally bankrupt. It remains a disquieting episode of American history and a stark example of the ends justifies the means. So, yeah, last time we talked about all those Nazis escaping to Argentina, but then again, we also harbored a lot of Nazis here in the United States that were very influential in building our space program, our military, up to what it is nowadays. Not a pleasant thought. I understand, like, Cold War mentality and all that. If war had broken out against the Russians, we needed technical edge, but it's still very moral in the gray area.
You know, they, the, there's the Nazi strongholds in Argentina, like we've talked about. What my question is, are I guess I haven't looked into it that much. Are there still the Nazi influence there, or is it my understanding that they disappeared, or they're no longer there?
There's definitely a lot of German influence in Argentina, but I don't think it's Nazi influence anymore. But if you go there now, you'll see towns that have a lot of German architecture and names and such. Even the children of these people's generation, they still have German names.
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of wondering, Argentina is it's heavily Hispanic, right?
Spanish, and then the Native American version, South America, I guess, all the Indian tribes down there.
But it's basically them two, basically those two races, really. I mean, there's others down there, I'm sure, but
Yeah, there is.
but it's not. There's not as much, German bloodline in the there anymore. Not
I
like
wouldn't
it,
think so. No.
not like it was, and I'm wondering if it's just because it's got watered down. That German bloodline got watered down so much now because there's none of them going over there anymore. Or my mind's just, I'm just kind of, I'm tired and my mind's going in 1,000 different directions. I'm thinking about stuff.
Right.
And then we're going to move on to another. And what people got to realize, these were conspiracies at the time that turned out to be true. Like, as I was saying, with the Germans fleeing to Argentina, a lot of people thought it might have been conspiracy or Hitler escaped Argentina, but there's some teeth to it at least. But now we're moving into Unit 731. Not a lot of people
This is dark.
very dark. Not a lot of people talk about the Japanese war crimes that happened in the Pacific during World War II. And Unit 731 was a secret research and development unit of the Imperial Japanese Army that operated between 1936 and 1945, dedicated to biological and chemical warfare. Officially known as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of Kwantung Army, it was in reality a cover for some of the most notorious war crimes of the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II. Unit 731 conducted lethal human experimentation on a massive scale, including live vivisections, disease injections, testing biological weapons on living people. Under the command of Surgeon General Shiro Ishii, this division inflicted horrifying atrocities in the name of science and war and resulted in the death of tens of thousands of civilians and prisoners alike.
This says.
Well, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that while I'm reading here, and if it looks like I'm doing other things, I'm kind of pulling up some stuff as we're going. It says that as far as their this unit goes, th- these tests dehumanize and, and internally referred to, the subjects were referred to as logs. So they weren't even calling them humans. They were calling them logs. Basically dehumanizing their, for lack of better words, victims.
Japanese were well known for that kind of thing during World War II.
Well, I found something interesting here. That states that between, the estimates vary, but between 1936 and 1945, roughly 14,000 were murdered in Unit 731.
And
An
that's
estimated 200,000 died from infections and illnesses caused in Unit 731.
yeah, and we're just talking about one unit of the Japanese army. We're not talking about the Japanese army in its entirety because they were already under the impression that everyone was lesser than they were.
And
All right.
I'm not gonna say that the Japanese are like this today, but
No.
back then, during World War II, a military whose soldiers were willing to kill themselves to take out as many people as they could is a military to be feared. I mean, what extent would they go to take out as many people as they could? I would not have wanted to been like, when they attacked Pearl Harbor. I would have been scared for my life seeing that, just plain dive bombing. How scary would that have been knowing that there's an army that was willing to do that?
Well, they also lived, they were followed what they called the Bushido Code, which was samurai back in the day, but they lived by the code of Bushido. And if you surrendered, you willingly gave up your honor, and you are therefore less than human, and you deserve to die. So prisoners of war were not looked well upon. They didn't look well upon the other Asian communities. They committed horrible crimes like YouTube's going to hate me for this. The rape of Nanking was one, where they were butchering an entire city of Chinese. It was so bad that a German diplomat who was a card-carrying member of the Nazi Party sheltered Chinese citizens in his walls to protect them. That should tell you the scale of the atrocities and how much they were willing to commit.
Well, it said this Unit 731 was responsible for the most notorious war crimes ever committed.
Quite possibly.
That's saying a lot right there.
Well, this is going to get really dark right here. A lot of people probably don't know what vivisection is. That's where they cut you open, and they were doing it to people without anesthesia while they were awake, just to study organ damage and disease progression before death. Infected prisoners were often cut open so researchers could observe active disease in living tissue. Testimonies describe victims screaming as they were being dissected, until a gag or a rag was stuffed in their mouths to silence them. Prisoners would have organs removed and limbs amputated in gruesome experimental surgeries, and some had limbs reattached in unnatural positions to study blood loss and surgical shock. Even, this is very, very dark, pregnant women were vivisected so they could examine the fetuses in utero. That takes a special kind of person right there to do that.
Boy, I tell you, I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah, they were
that's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, and the frostbite experiments, they were testing out, captives were taken into sub-zero winter cold, had limbs dunked in ice water until frozen solid, Then the lead scientist would strike the frozen limbs with a stick, producing a sound like planked wood. To confirm they were ice solid, he would then experiment with various methods of thawing, such as dousing the victim in hot water, exposing to an open fire, to observe tissue damage and possible treatment. Sometimes victims' fingers were intentionally frozen and then infected and allowed to develop gangrene. They would leave prisoners outside the negative 40-degree cold and film it.
Golly. Yeah, they was into a lot of stuff. I mean, can you imagine, this hyperbaric pressure chamber testing? I mean, imagine what went wrong during that.
So
Yeah,
I'm looking here I'm on Wikipedia right now. They did a study on syphilis as well, and it read what is written here. It says unit members orchestrated forced sex acts between infected and non-infected prisoners to transmit the disease, as the testimony of a prison guard on the subject of devising a method of transmission of syphilis between victims shows. It's brutal bullshit. Basically.
yeah. And another thing, my freaking laptop's about to die, of course. Another thing they would do is plague bombs and germ warfare. They were breeding massive quantities of Yersinia pestis, which for normal people won't know what that is, but other people, the Black Death. They were manufacturing the Black Death.
Right.
One of the deadliest plagues to ever affect mankind. I mean, it wouldn't be as deadly today because we got the medicines for it. But they were purposely developed ceramic cluster bombs to keep fleas infected with it alive upon the explosion and dispersion. And they would drop them over Chinese villages and cities such as Ningbo and Qingdi in 1941. These attacks caused outbreaks of bubonic plague, cholera, anthrax, and other diseases over entire regions. One estimate these biological attacks killed at least 400,000 Chinese civilians.
You're talking about these biological things. It's what I'm looking at here says by 1939 that Ishii or Ishii had
Shiro Ishii.
yeah had condensed his laboratory discoveries to 6 potent pathogens: anthrax, typhoid, paratyphoid, Vander's, dysentery, and plague-infected human fleas. So when you were talking about the fleas, that popped in my mind. It was right there. I was looking at when you started talking about it.
Yeah, Yersinia pestis.
That's some pretty rank stuff.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, and then they also did other lethal experiments, such as, let's see here. They would actually use weapons of war on prisoners to test the damage they did. Prisoners were used as tests to test weapons and the limits of human survival. Victims were tied to stakes at various distances around explosives and grenades to evaluate blast injuries and shrapnel dispersion. Some were exposed to flamethrowers or chemical weapons to assess the effectiveness. One experiment aimed to improve battlefield surgery. Chinese prisoners were deliberately wounded with bomb blasts. Those that survived the initial explosion were then subject to often fatal surgeries or vivisections to practice surgical techniques on living injury models. Yeah, they would also electrocute the hell out of them, dehydrate them to death, Some had animal blood transfused into them to observe the transfusion reactions. Others were injected with lethal poisons and chemicals, or forced to inhale toxic gas in gas chambers. Unit 731 and its facility have often earned the comparison of the Asian Auschwitz due to the scale of human atrocities. And 731 was not the only one doing this. There were other units. There was a sister unit at least called Unit 1644. So this was happening on a pretty wide scale, like the German death camps. But here's where we get into the.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, here's where we get into the dark stuff, like Shiro Ishii. None of these people stood trial for what they did. None of them. Because we brokered a deal, we gained all their medical knowledge they picked up in these tests for their immunity. So that's dark as hell. Like Shiro Ishii, the founder of 731, let's see, he thought he was on a God-given mission to save lives and did not apply to the victims of his experiments. He died a free man in 1959 from throat cancer. So he escaped justice, you know. His second in command lived to 1986, never faced any punishment for what he did. Another one, most of these guys lived until they were in their 80s, never faced trial for any of it because we gave them immunity. So we could actually have all the data that they collected. And a lot of our medical doctrines now are based on what they collected. They did, dark as it is to say, they advanced medical knowledge by leaps and bounds doing this, but makes you wonder if the price is worth it.
But, you know, it's kind of like
a lot of people lost their lives. Go ahead.
It's kind of like saying, you know, how's that go? The loss of one for the greater than the many. You know they killed a few. Well, I mean they killed a lot of people, but still, it's less than what the population of the world was, and what they took, the people that they basically tortured, ended up helping a lot of other people. Help in the end.
Yeah, I understand they went to help other people, but dear God, I mean, there's no one from Unit 731, no prisoner that lived. They killed them all because they had a policy of no prisoners left.
I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine what would be on your mind if you was one of their prisoners? I mean, you know, it'd be horrific.
You're gonna die. It just depends on how brutal you're gonna die. Because no prisoners lived through it. And here's the cover-up. Unit 731's atrocities took a back seat to the Cold War. The United States occupying Japan made the controversial decision to shield Unit 731 members from prosecution. In exchange for their research findings, while we didn't bring them to America, we got all their data. This effectively became the immunity deal that spared Ishii and his colleagues from war crimes. Douglas MacArthur, Supreme Commander of the Allied powers in Japan, oversaw the arrangement. In late 1945, MacArthur realized the Japanese had amassed extensive data on human pathology and germ warfare that the U.S. did not have. So they took the information and gave them immunity deals from it.
But if you think about it, we blew the hell out of them too.
Yeah. I mean, we did, for sure.
We took that German technology and blew them up.
But here's the terrible thing. We also paid them. The amount totaled 150,000 to 200,000 yen, equivalent to millions of yen today, as incentive for full cooperation. So not only did they escape, they got paid for it. It
No
went as
doubt
far,
about it.
yeah, it went as far as the cover-up went on returning POWs were silenced. So any American POW that had heard of experimentations was told to shut the hell up. So yeah, justice was never served to the Unit 731's victims, and all the collaborators managed to survive. The public did not, the government itself, the Japanese government did not publicly acknowledge the atrocities of 731 until 1988, which that's crazy. Of course, Japanese really don't talk about their war crimes in World War II. In a way, it's understandable because the Germans, I don't think really, they might acknowledge it, but I know the Japanese definitely don't. It's a dark,
Sorry
dark
for
in
the
their
laugh.
history.
If that was loud, I was killing a fly. I'm sorry.
You're good. But as far as cover-ups go, government cover-ups, this is a pretty big one. And I know we're usually doing cryptids or other crap like that, but I felt, Operation Paperclip and Unit 731 at least deserve to be told a little bit so people would know about it. I mean, there's other people that have done videos on both of them, but
And honestly, I don't think I've ever looked into them, so I didn't really know much about them till you brought them up the other day.
yeah, it's dark. So that's all I got on it. I mean, I honestly glossed over some because YouTube would not like you to really go into the details of what happened, especially in Unit 731. YouTube is very stringent on crap like that, which sucks, but it's the way it is. But anyway, so who has next episode? I forgot.
The caveman up there.
The caveman.
So,
Yep. And we're gonna dive into a little bit of a deadly murder. We're gonna. It's about Richard Gene Simmons, regarded as the deadliest mass murderer in Arkansas history. For over a week in December of 1987, he murdered 16 people. 14 was his own family members. Why did he do it? That question has never been answered.
I forgot.
Hopefully we can shed a little light on it.
Yeah.
I've never actually heard of it.
I think we talked about it. I think me and Craig have talked about him a little bit one day, and I'm pointing up at the
podcast.
Yeah. I'm pointing up that direction because that's the direction Craig is on my screen. So.
He's over here. He's over
here
on mine.
Yeah. But he's one of the deadliest. I mean, mass murder in Arkansas history. I mean, it was brutal. If you read the details of some of it.
Yeah, we'll get into that next week.
So, well, since we're doing that, I'm going to be trying to think of a cryptid we can talk about or something. Since we
we're going to have to get back that way.
Since we are a supernatural roundtable, I figure we might want to get back into little cryptids and spookers.
Works for me.
But these serial killers, there's something wrong with them. They're mentally not there. They're possessed or something. So
they can go into the realm of supernatural in a way. You think about it.
Like Richard Gene Simmons, he was a veteran. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Sean, do you want to go ahead and head us out since we've about covered everything?
Yeah. I've been trying to come up with a few podcasts that, other podcasts that people might enjoy listening to. one that they've been around for quite a while and don't really need a formal introduction. There's one that I really enjoy called History Goes Bump. They're out of Florida, but they do a really good job. So that's my uh, podcast plug for this one. Then there are a couple people that uh, if I have a podcasting question or something, I'll shoot one of the two hosts. My question would be like, hey, what do you think about this, or how can I do this a little bit different? You know, but they're both really good at communicating. And, you know, they're really uh, fan oriented, really. Then if anybody wants to reach us, it's our email is supernat or not supernatural. Crystal got me all messed up that one time she messed up. Now I'm messing it up every time. Paranormal Adventures 2 at gmail.com. Then we've got the Paranormal Adventures with Sean and Crystal on Facebook. Then I'll let y'all plug y'all's Facebook thing.
Alright, well, we are on Facebook under the Arky Squatchers. You can find us there. And of course, our YouTube page, the Supernatural Roundtable. So, I think that's it.
And everybody, please like us, subscribe to us, help us grow. We sure appreciate your support.
Give a heads up to everybody. Crystal and I's next episode is going to be on the Wendigo. So that's going to be our kind of cryptid for the. We're going to do that this week. So that's going to be our cryptid of the week. So
Cool.
Anyway, we're good.
All right. Sounds good. Y'all have a good one.
I'll see y'all. I'll start working on this. I might not get this done and edited tonight. We're pretty late on this. So
Yeah, that's probably my fault too. So.
Nah, it's fine. We finally got it recorded, so we're good.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay. Y'all have a good one.
See y'all.
Bye.